Come all you weary who move through the earth and spurn at fine restaurants and kicked out of church. I've got a couple of loaves, so sit down at my feet. Lend me your ears as we break bread and eat. Come all you weary, come gather round near me, find rest for your soul. Come all you weary, you crippled, you lame. I'll help you along and you can lay down your canes. We've got a long way to go, but we'll travel as friends. The light's growing bright, further up, further in. Come all you weary, come gather round near me, find rest for your soul. Come all you weary, come gather round near me, find rest for your souls.
Reading from John 15. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commandments so that you may love one another.
I can taste it in my mouth. I am hanging upside down. All the faces gather round, and to wait and see, to breathe relief, to call my name for the first time, to cry your eyes out and fill your lungs up, 'cause we all hurt, we all lie, and nothing stays the same. Oh, dear life, oh. dark and bright. It's beautiful and it's alright to cry your eyes out and fill your lungs up. 'Cause we all hurt, we all lie, and nothing stays the same. So let your guard down and get your heart pounded. 'Cause we all bleed, we all breathe, and nothing stays the same. Oh, we all believe in something that'll rip us into shreds. We all know why it sings. So open up your chest. Watch the signs of greatness. We hope that someone sees our broken teeth are scattered, but we're smiling underneath. 1,000 bruising muscles, still we're running on and on. We all know names that ring like thunder, rattling our walls. Everyone is yearning for a reason, for a cause. Somewhere deep inside, hold on for dear life. Oh, dear life. Oh, dear life. Oh, dear life. So cry your eyes out and fill your lungs up. 'Cause we all hurt, we all lie, and nothing stays the same. So let your guard down and get your heart pounded. 'Cause we all breathe, we all bleed, and nothing stays the same. We all hurt, we all learn, and nothing stays the same. I lift my eyes up to the hills. This my morning song, where my strength comes from. I lift my eyes up to the hills. This my evening song, where my help comes from. This is the gravity of love, just as the moon follows the sun. You're all around me, you're holding everything. This is the hope of every land, just as the universe expands. Your love is reaching, you're holding everything. We lift our eyes up to the hills. When will our help come? Lord, we cry, how long? We lift our eyes up to the hills. Even as we run, hope is chasing us. This is the gravity Just as the moon follows the sun, you're all around me. You're holding everything. This is the hope of every land. Just as the universe expands, your love is reaching. You're holding everything. I lift my eyes up to the hills.
And who are you, love, says reason? Are you not also one of the virtues, and one of us, even though you be above us? I am God, says love, for love is God, and God is love. And this soul is God through its condition of love. And I am God through my divine nature. And this soul is God by love's just law. So that this, my precious beloved, is taught and guided by me without herself, for she has been changed into me. And this is the outcome, says love, of being nourished by me.
Every day we go to war again, we assume we know so much more than them before we hear what they have to say. Headline breaks and we start to hate again, calling them names again. We give our peace away, and I hope they see it, 'cause I wanna see it. I hope we believe it, 'cause I wanna see the love all around you. It's all around you. And I wanna know that love is all around you. It's all around. Day by day, hope fades away, and then we know that there is pain within we cannot medicate. Learn to feel and learn to begin again. Open our eyes again to see our brother's pain. And I hope they see it, 'cause I wanna see it. I hope we believe it, 'cause I wanna see the love all around you. It's all around you. And I wanna know that love
Good morning. Before I introduce our guest speaker today, Chris Aho, I just wanted to give a little update about some really great things that I got to witness. Yesterday, I went over to St. Pete, across the bay. It's not all bad over there. It's not. That was a good reaction. Tampa for life! And over there, we all celebrated together the CBF, the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship Spring Celebration. And last year, I don't know if it's like this every year, but this year, they celebrated 4 missions partners, and who each shared, and they were really great. Amani Sasa is a house. I say a house, it's a lot more robust than that. It's a refuge center, long-term program that refugees can go through in Uganda. And, there's a lot of refugees in East Africa who make their way to Uganda. We're somewhat familiar with that, as all of the teachers in To Move Mountains at one time or another were in Uganda, either as refugees or getting their training. So it was encouraging to see a part of the world that we give significantly to, represented and given aid in Amani Sasa. They're empowering young men, women, and children to have a kind of dignity and agency in a place where it can be difficult as a refugee, of course. We know how that is with our own refugees in our area. We heard from Touching Miami with Love, which is a group that lends support, literacy campaigns, Spanish lessons, what else? Just all kinds of community-rooted efforts to minister to the vulnerable community of Homestead, which, if any of you are familiar with the Miami area, Homestead is historically impoverished. It's a historically black community and has been since civil rights. It was the only place where black folks were allowed to live in that area. And because of those unjust laws, of course, impoverishment is still a threat today. And now they're under the threat of gentrification. And it was encouraging to hear her say, the director of Touching Miami with Love, it was encouraging to hear her say, in the past, we've had to fight redlining, and we fought the crack epidemic in the 80s, and now we're fighting gentrification. And she said, and then there's CBF, right? Partners in that fight. That was beautiful. And then we heard from Together for Hope, which was a powerful presentation on the way that this group is helping to organize rural communities, the most impoverished communities in the United States, who have faced some of those same issues, right? And Jason shared with us the compelling and clear reasons why impoverishment occurs in these communities. He said, you'll hear people say the system is broken. He's like, systems aren't broken. Systems are functioning exactly how they're meant to function, right? And they have a 3-step ministry where they work on intervention, like meeting the needs of people right now where there are urgent needs, right? Much like Kinship Market does. Are people hungry? Okay, let's organize the nonprofits already at work in these communities, help them work together more efficiently so they can address actual needs in the moment. And then the second stage is organizing the community together around the assets that they already have and highlighting the beautiful and good work already being done and helping collectivize that and organize that. And then the third is, okay, we're addressing agency, we're building in our community, we're taking a self-determinative approach to our neighborhoods. We've seen this. When people do that, it comes into conflict with the powers. And so the third section of their ministry is helping people organize direct action so that they can change the systemic issues that create those environments in the first place. So that was an amazing, amazing presentation and a beautiful CBF partner. And then finally, there was Cultivate Abundance, who is just neighbors of ours in Immokalee, couple hours south, right? And we all know about Immokalee with the tomato farms there and the basically slave conditions of the workers. He reminded us that in order to get minimum wage, a tomato picker would have to pick 3 tons of tomatoes. Tons. For minimum wage. They live in trailers that are exorbitant rent because they are charged by the head, right, instead of by the trailer. and often there would be up to 17 people living in a trailer, all charged rent, and the trailer sometimes will have the floor falling out or not running water, no heat or air conditioning, right? And it's owned by a few people who charge the massive workers exorbitant rent. It's very exploitative, it's wrong, and Cultivate Abundance is trying to ease some of the burdens there by having a collection of community gardens and small localized farming practices that grow culturally appropriate, nutritious food for the farm worker community. It's ironic, it's heartbreaking, I was like, Chris was sitting next to me, he can confirm, I was very angry listening to these things. It's ironic and terrible that the people who put food on our tables cannot put food on their tables. And so Cultivate Abundance is helping there, and I got to talk to Rick Burnett afterwards, and I said, hey, that was a great presentation, thank you. Like, I'd love to come down and visit, because they put that call out, right? It's not like, I'm gonna go see it. They said people can visit. And I said, we'd love to come down there at some point, and your efforts are really great. And he's like, yeah, have you ever been to Immokalee? I said, I've never been, I'm familiar with it. We had Coalition of Immokalee workers present at our church one time, and he told me, this is his exact phrase, he said, well, if you've had CIW present, then you definitely belong in CBF. And that was a really encouraging thing to hear, because, you know, we've got these partnerships that are right before us. Oh yeah, that's a reminder, business meeting next week. We've got this partnership that is right before us that we can take the opportunity to work more closely with, that is really bringing the good news of shalom, of the kingdom of God to the world. And so it's going to be exciting. So we have the business meeting next week. Remember that on the 19th, Mary will be preaching on Pentecost. I told Dan earlier that she's probably going to lead in speaking in tongues, and he just stared at me blankly. So probably that will not happen. I'm just joking. If you would like to join us at the Hope Celebration as we celebrate our ongoing work and our successes and our victories, that is at the Portico, May 20th. All this is in your bulletin and in your weekly email as well, but I want to highlight it. And then finally, the call to join us. I actually don't know if I'll be able to be there. Eldon has a field trip that was rescheduled, but May 17th at 8:30 a.m. at the County Building, 26th floor, conference rooms A and B, we will again be gathering for the Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting, as we can put some pressure on that council to expand APAD so we can reduce the criminalization of poverty. So that's what's coming up for us. Today, I am honored to have Chris Aho with us. He is the CBF Director of Thriving Congregations. For those of you on the Thriving Congregations team, you obviously know him, have met him, and he has shared with us innumerable hours, it feels like. No, I'm just kidding. It's been great. And so I thought he could share with us whatever he feels led to share, but I hope he does talk about Thriving Congregations a little bit. And yeah, Chris, come on up.
I feel like very, like a little bit off my game, because like I forgot my Bible for preaching, and it's this being here with you this morning feels so much like, I told Jacob, like the church that I was a part of, like a church plant when I was in college. And yeah, so for 21 years I've been like preaching at, you know, good old traditional churches. And so, you know, I have my script and I follow it. And so I can do that this morning, but maybe if we go off script a little bit, it'd be okay. I will share about Thriving Congregations. I am going to talk a bit about CBF and some of the ways that I think CBF can be important. Because of this, when it comes to the fact that like I call myself a denominational hack, meaning that I work for the denomination, and a lot of times those people have been like awful. I don't want anybody to engage in work with CBF because it's what you've always done, or because it's like you feel like something you have to do. Because if we know anything about the world we live in and like the post-COVID world, and just the like what's happened in our lives the last few years, we don't have time for things, and we don't have energy for things that like we should just do because we're supposed to. And so one of the things I hope that like the few stories that I share this morning will provide for you is a sense in which like there are people who might want to be doing the things that you want to do. And be a part of the conversations that you all want to be a part of. And so I hope maybe you explore and feel some of that. The good news, bad news thing about CBF and say yesterday's CBF Florida meeting is Chris gave you in 6 minutes what it took 2.5 hours to get yesterday. So I could have skipped all of yesterday, just come here and gotten the like cliff notes maybe. But it was good to be with those folks, and I hope that as you have opportunities and interests, you'll engage with CBF Florida in some meaningful and supportive ways. And like I work for CBF Global, so it's like, you know, like home office / franchise thing. Like I don't know how you want to think about that, but well, all I know is that like we care about congregations, and my job is to get to help congregations thrive in the ways that you feel called to thrive. And so my job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to help you discover what God's called you to, and then like let's figure out how to level it up a little bit. So for my sermon sharing time this morning, it's going to go in a few movements. I'm going to read a scripture, and then I've already sort of started giving the commercial. I've got a couple of stories, maybe like connecting the Bible to CBF and some of our work, and then I'll share kind of a closing story that'll wrap it up. So that's the, like those are the bullet points. And if I remember, I'll sort of tell you as we go, like kind of how that's working. But as I bring greetings from CBF and talk about thriving congregations, first is like the commercial. What your team has been doing is learning 3 big things. And frankly, because your team has been a part of this work all year, I can tell you now what they've been learning, whereas when we first got started, it was like, I don't know, we're going to help you thrive. It's going to be great, right? But like we've been learning on the fly as this was our second time going through this. The 3 things your team learned first was like, how do you run a holy experiment in church? What is a holy experiment? How do you do it? Why does it matter? And frankly, a lot of us have done church the way we've done it for a long time, and like we couldn't change things because we didn't want to hurt people's feelings. So we talk about that in October. Every month, your team dutifully signs on to a Zoom meeting with like 45 other people from Florida and North Carolina and Virginia, and like they listen to me talk while I go through like these endless slideshows. But they're very patient about it all. And we talk about the 5 traits of thriving because we think churches that thrive do 5 things really well. They engage in rooted relationships. They have compelling clarity about what they're called to do. They engage in dynamic collaboration, which means they have like friends that do stuff with them that are not like them. And then they have holy tenacity and faithful agility. And so we've been talking about those on Zoom meetings, and today in this like the sermon that I have is about rooted relationships. And then the last thing that they've been learning, so thriving traits, holy experiments, and then sort of like a creative approach, design approach to solving problems. They call it design thinking, but it's basically just listening to people and meeting their needs. Rick Burnett told this great story yesterday about how the people that live in Immokalee, during COVID, the government came in and brought these like 20-pound food boxes of like free food for everybody. Anybody who wanted one could get one. And so all the people from the places where they lived were walked like a mile to like the place where you picked up this like 20-pound box of food. And then they started walking back with the box of food to where they lived so they could prepare it. And Rick said, we noticed that like as we started to go, like food was getting dropped out of the box. Not because the box was broken, but because the people, like, it was heavy. And they started looking in this box, and they realized, like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I don't know what to do with that thing. And so I don't know if it was, like, Spam or pasta or, like, whatever. But, like, the folks were, like, dropping the food out of their box. Like, maybe they didn't know what to do with, like, government cheese, right? And they were dropping the food in the box because it was food that, like, the USDA decided that they needed, but they didn't ask the people, what do you actually want? And what do you actually need? And Rick said when they do their food distribution, much like what y'all were, Mike and Chris were talking to me about the well this morning, we asked people what they wanted, and then they come and get it. We didn't impose a need upon them. We didn't say, well, you know, what you really need is, it's like, no, I don't need that. I need Rick said, my neighbors don't know what to do with the mangoes that I grow because they're from Michigan. I'm from Michigan too. But he's like, but the people who work in Immokalee from Central America and from the Caribbean who have immigrated to try to have a life here, the migrants, they know exactly what to do with mangoes, and they love them, and they don't last. So a design approach listens to your congregation, listens to your community, and then builds something that will meet their needs. So that's been the Thriving Congregations commercial. But this morning, I want to talk about rooted relationships, and we're going to talk about it through two scriptures. One which was already read this morning, John 15, 9 through 17. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Jesus is telling his disciples, you are my friends if you do what I command. No longer do I call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything I have learned from my Father I've made known to you. And then 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, we could read the whole part of it, but Paul and, Paul and his two traveling companions say, like, you know that our visit to you was not without results. We had previously suffered and been treated outrageously in Philippi, as you know, but with the help of God, we dared to tell you his gospel in the face of strong opposition. The appeal we make does not spring from error or impure motives, nor are we trying to trick you. On the contrary, we speak as those approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but God who tests our hearts. You know, we never use flattery. We didn't put on masks or cover up greed. God is our witness. We were not looking for praise from people nor from anyone else, even though as apostles we could have asserted our authority. Instead, we were like young children among you. Just as a nursing mother cares for her children, so we cared for you. But this is a key verse I want to point out, verse 8. We loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel, but our lives as well, because you've become so dear to us. When we talk in Thriving Congregations work about rooted relationships, I've spent 3 years thinking about this, working on this, and I think the most important thing in church is rooted relationships. And you are going to prove it to me right now, and you're going to prove it to yourself. And I'm going to ask you, to raise your hand to answer this question. All right. You don't have to speak, but the question is this: who in this room drove past another church to get to this church this morning? So I think we got 100%. What that tells us is we have made a choice about which church we're going to. We're making a choice about the community of believers that we are involved with. We have made a choice about who we want to share our spiritual lives with. We loved you so much that we were delighted to share with you not just the gospel, but our lives as well, because you have become so dear to us. We go to church with the people we love, who we trust, who we want to share our spiritual life with. And that's why I think when it comes to the life of the church, and I hope also, as it relates to our engagement with CBF and anyone else that we want to partner with for ministry, we realize it's about the relationships. Frankly, there's those of you who remember politics. Back in 1992, when Bill Clinton was elected president, James Carville said, "It's the economy, stupid." Do you remember him saying this? Well, Chris, the gospel according to Chris is it's the relationships dummy. I can't put that on a sticker because like CBF can't produce like dummy stickers, right? That's not a good idea. But it is about the relationships. And in all of our lives, it's this way, which is why some of us do silly things like join cults. I personally am a member of one cult. This is a joke, but I am a member of a cult. I joined it about 3 years ago because I was tired of running around my neighborhood and riding my bikes in the heat. And so my wife, we were downtown one time, and she said, that's a really cool name for a gym. We lived in a town called Oxford, North Carolina, and the name of the gym was Strong Ox CrossFit. So I emailed the owner and was like, hey, yeah, maybe I'll try that free consultation. And then like 3 days later, I had a 6-month contract to a CrossFit gym. And I've been now a part of 3 CrossFit gyms across the last 3 years because of like I moved and then one closed. And I realized that like I need the like someone working out next to me in order to like push me. And like it's helped. Like my body has changed a little bit, but like the ice cream I've been eating from Chill Brothers since I'm here has not helped at all. But what we realize is like CrossFit is great. The reason I think CrossFit's a great story about rooted relationships is because everybody who goes into the gym gets a workout that's sort of tailored to their strengths or weaknesses. And so like I don't do pull-ups. Like I can't do pull-ups. Like probably because too much ice cream. But my coach each week will give me like a plan that works for me when I walk into the gym. So I don't have to do the exact same workout that Ty, who weighs 140 pounds and played Division 1A baseball, has to do. And Mary, the 30-something medical resident who's pregnant, like we don't do the same workout either, but we do it together. And when we're done, we're all exhausted and we're sweaty, and you can draw a chalk outline around our sweat on the floor. And then we come back and do it the next day. Because the workout's good, the workout meets our needs, and because we love who we do it with. It's a relationship of sorts. We loved you so much that we're delighted to share with you not just a workout, but our lives as well. That might be the gospel according to CrossFit, right? And in that scripture, I think there was a time in which when we talk about our external relationships when it comes to like being a church, like being a member of the Southern Baptist Convention or being a member of the United Methodist Church or being a member of this, there was a time in which we had to do that because like that's what you did. And now you don't have to do that anymore. But I hope that you're into it for the relationship. I hope that you're into it for the connection that it can bring. And I think that actually that's kind of countercultural. Because up and down, I've noticed up and down the interstates, there's a lot of people who want to proclaim a gospel that like is scary and is really about them accomplishing something other than like maybe to make themselves feel good or something. I don't know. I drive up and down. When I come to Tampa, my dad lives in the Villages part of the year, so I go see him. And up and down, you've got the billboards, right? Someone has paid lots of money to like put a proclamation on a billboard about this, that, or the other that they think might scare people into heaven. I think. And it's kind of like when I was a kid that we'd go to a big old evangelism conference and then we have to like witness to the people at the park outside. And like, if you didn't get out first, you didn't get to witness because that same person on that same park bench was like, I just want to eat my lunch. I don't want a bunch of teenagers handing me gospel tracts. But it does make me wonder that like, what is the gospel if it's not rooted in relationships? What is it to just like throw things out there and say we're doing stuff if it's not about the relationships we share with one another? And so as Chris said, like, share a little bit about CBF and some of the things that like CBF might do that might connect with what's important to Waters Ave. I came up with like 5 quick places where I think CBF's doing work that maybe looks like something, but at the end of the day really is about relationships. I work as a part of a team that's called the Congregational Ministries team. And we have support systems for ministers called Thriving in Ministry or peer learning groups. We have this Thriving Congregations initiative, which helps leadership teams from churches connect. And then we also have like abuse prevention and response, so that if you have a problem in your church, we have one of our team members that can help guide you through that. He also will help ministers who need to change jobs. Jay jokes that he's like, I'm the one you don't want to see your preacher talking to because it means something bad happened or they're trying to go somewhere else, right? But we support ministers and churches in being healthy and strong. The second is we have like missionaries, field personnel in the whole world, in like 35 couples in like 35 field personnel in like 19 countries. But as problematic as some of like our historical missions might have been, where it was like go to another country, hand out a bunch of tracts, translate the Bible into their language, and get them to just get saved, almost all of our field personnel are like Rick Burnett, who is listening to folks on the ground saying, what do you need and how can we meet your needs? Because what we feel called to is not just like help people to experience Jesus, yes, but we think that the way they're going to experience Jesus is by us fulfilling our call to serve and support people, whether they love Jesus or not. You catch more flies with honey, right? So I think in global missions, we have a real burden to care for refugees because that's what Jesus calls us to do. And one of our colleagues in Latin America wants to carry 5,000 children out of poverty in his career, in his life, and is designing a global mission strategy for Latin America to carry kids out of poverty and not just give them handouts to like bridge them to the next handout. So that was, one is congregations, two is global missions. Three, we work with congregations to find creative expressions of growth and change and rooting relationships. One of the things that I don't know if all of you all will connect to, but I had to check. We give ministry grants every year, and what happens is churches like apply for these little grants, and you can ask for like $1,000 or $3,000 or $8,000. And the team reads all of the grant proposals, but we don't know which church, like it's all redacted so you're not like biased against which church, like, right? It's a blank. And this church applied for $2,000 so that they could host D&D camp, Dungeons & Dragons camp, at the local library during the summer. And I was like, that's not Waters Ave, is it? And like, it turned out it's not. It's not. But there are people out there that are seeking to do, like, I know like this much about what D&D is. My son plays it, right? But what I do know D&D is not is it's not this. Right? It's this. It's this. It's engaging around the table. It's sharing life. And so each year we give ministry grants to help people like connect to one another. One minister has this call to like serve food in her community, and so Bowls to Go is going to be their ministry, and they're going to do like just a happy food bowl to like share. And like we don't know if it'll last forever, but it's a holy experiment. They know people in their neighborhood need food, and so they're going to try Bowls to Go. So we're trying to help give congregations ways to be creative and do ministry that's authentically rooted, that others can learn from, not as a prescription, but as a description of what's there. Describe what you've done, and then help us figure out how might something that's encouraged by that work somewhere else. That's three. Number four, we have an advocacy team that has already talked to Chris about a fund you guys are thinking about. Can I say that? About Solidarity Fund, right? My colleague Sharon has helped several churches set up funds similar to what you all are thinking about as a Solidarity Fund with credit unions in order to help folks get out of cycles of debt and poverty. Our other colleague, Jennifer, was there yesterday, and she works on Capitol Hill, or near Capitol Hill, on behalf of like making big change, because one of the things that folks in DC will tell you that advocate for the things that like we all care about is a lot of the time you can change more with a swipe of a pen than you can with all of the donations in the world. And so it's, while I think we all roll our eyes sometimes about the politics that's going on, and like we well should, the fact of the matter is there are powers and principalities that we can make change through. So go to the 26th floor conference room, A and B, and advocate for change. And Jennifer is there advocating for change because that stuff that happens there can help real world on the ground things change in our lives. And the fifth thing is CBF has the power to convene folks. There's like not really any other reason to go to St. Pete on a Saturday morning, right? Just teasing. Like there were about 100 people there yesterday morning, and like that's not the hugest meeting in the world by any means. But CBF, across a given year in 17 states and regions, and in our national annual gathering, brings together over 2,000 people who represent many more churches, or who represent at least that many churches, who care about doing good work in the world and want to be friends with one another who are doing it and want to learn from each other as we go. You can go it alone. You can be an isolationist and you can be independent, but man, it's like so much better to have friends as you do it, even if it's because you're a part of a cult called CrossFit or any other number of cults. As this morning I was skimming through Twitter, getting ready, someone said, "Did you know about the Jeep Wave?" Do y'all know about the Jeep Wave? Anybody had a Jeep? Right? Like if you, here you go, a secret. If you drive a Jeep and you're driving another, the other people with Jeeps are going to wave at you. People with Jeeps wave at each other. I've had like a bunch of different cars, and there's not an Audi wave, there is no Mini Cooper wave, So CBF has the power to convene and put Baptists together in ways that I think, I hope let us work on the things we care about. I'll close with that convening story with this. There's an old joke about the guy who gets stranded on a desert island, right? And he gets found, and he says, you want me to show you around what I've done while I've been here? And they say, sure, yeah, so show us around before we take you back to where you want to go. And there's 3 buildings, right? And so the first building, they're like, oh, cool, what's this? Well, that's my house, that's where I've been living. Oh, that's great. What's the second building? Oh, that's my church, that's where I've been going to church here on this island by myself. Cool, all right, good. What's the third building? Oh, that's the church I used to go to. Right? Like where 2 or more Baptists are gathered, there's 3 or 4 opinions. There is no litmus test that we can give to one another to make sure everything is perfect in every relationship. It's just not possible. My wife and I have been married 25 years this year. She works in Baptist adjacent spaces, and we still have several fights over several different things as it relates to like Baptist opinions. But the fact of the matter is we go further together than we do on our own. And CBF has the power and hopes to hold with open hands the power to convene. And so I want to close with 2 brief sort of illustrations. One about my handyman work, and then the last one, I'll move back to CrossFit as a close. I realize there's something in our life, like the power of our social life is pushing against us asking for help. My neighbor next door, Ryan, is he's like early 30s. He's married to Des. She's a doctor. He's a rocket scientist, like legit. Duke, NASA, whatever. He asked to borrow a ladder because they needed to paint something. And I was like, I'm so happy you're borrowing my ladder. Because when you're not using my ladder, it is sitting in my closet, taking up space and getting dust. Like my neighborhood does not need 25 12-foot ladders. Because there are not 25 of us using 25 ladders all at the same time, is there? But back in the winter, maybe it was the fall, my wife decided she wanted a new kitchen sink. And so I was like, I watched a YouTube video or two, and I was like, I can do a sync. I think I can do this, right? You unscrew the things, and you like pull the thing out, and you. So I watched the YouTube video. We went to the Lowe's 3 miles away. We bought the stuff for the sink. We came home. I got in a little bit of a tight spot, so I watched another YouTube video, went back to Lowe's, got some more stuff, came home. This happened about 4 times, okay? The sink is working great. But what I realized was when I watch a YouTube video, before I get to watch the video, YouTube gets to sell an ad. And when I drive my car, the company, Exxon gets to sell gas. And when I walk into Lowe's, Lowe's gets to sell me stuff that it says that I need. And so the biggest act of rebellion in both of those stories is letting my neighbor borrow a ladder. Because one, yes, it's like, yes, the economy is important, it matters, we should support it. Like, I want a good economy. But I also, don't want to buy stuff just for the sake of buying stuff. And I don't want to be sold stuff just because it keeps some random company's mail order supplement going either. The money keeps going if I do it by myself. But Ryan and I become better friends when we're vulnerable enough to ask for help. Which brings me to the last word. Back in 2017-ish, Vox, the website, ran a story about CrossFit, and the phrase that came out of it that resonated was, "CrossFit is my church." And I was a pastor at the time, and it still haunts me to even sort of say that because, I'm in the cult now, and I'm like, this is definitely not church. But a researcher and a faith sort of based person named Casper ter Kuile, who convenes people around gathering, researched it and realized in his book called The Power of Ritual. The Power of Ritual. He wrote, people go to CrossFit because they want to lose a few pounds, they want to get in shape, but they stay because of the relationships. Maybe you go to church because you think my kids should grow up in it, but I think you stay because of the people you can share your life with, right? At the end of the day, I think when it comes to your congregation, when it comes to your relationships, I think it's about relationships. It's about rooting our relationships in ways with people that we can share life. Because when we're not in relationship, when there's distance between us, fear grows in the middle. And frankly, fear sells ads on cable television on both sides. But we don't need more ads. We need more wholeness. We need more love. And we need to remember, as Jesus said, you are no longer just my servants, but you are my friends. And we need to remember, as Paul wrote and lived out to that church in Thessalonica, we loved you so much, not just because we got to share the gospel with you, but we shared our lives as well. And in doing so, you became so dear to us. Cult, Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, Waters Avenue, may we find rooted relationships that help us experience, enhance, and further explore our faith in meaningful ways. Will you pray with me? Loving God, we thank you for this day that we have. We thank you for this church that is a home for friendships, relationships, and a spiritual community of people who are seeking to love you and be faithful in the ways that you have called them to be, called all of us to be. May we find instances where we care not only about the gospel, but about one another's lives, because we have become so dear to each other. And in that, may we experience not just that we are your servants, but we are your friends. And that in that we might find friends wherever you lead us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chris. Each week, of course, we gather around this act. We're glad it's not as sweaty as CrossFit. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took bread, the gift of sustenance, the gift of life, the gift of relationality and joy around a shared table, and he broke it as they were going to celebrate deliverance, and he said, "This bread is my body, broken for you." In the same way, he took wine, the drink of joy, of laughter, of excitement, of forgetting what is tough in life oftentimes. But he said, "This wine is my blood, which is about to be poured out." Each week, we do this in remembrance of Christ as a way of bringing his life back into our life, of committing to the same path he walked. Greater love has no one than this, and they lay down their life for their friends. But we call this communion, right? We commune with each other in this moment. It is an act that we ruthlessly cling to. It's an act of holy rebellion. In a world that wants to drive us apart from each other, we say no, we will embrace our relationships. We will embrace our love around this act and around so many other acts as well. So this morning, as we partake together, have a moment of reflection. Let the faces in this room go through your mind. May you engage in prayerful joy and thanksgiving for the people in this room. And may your hearts be filled with grace. Join me together in prayer. God, you have brought us out of the earth to embody your goodness, beauty, and justice. We experience the presence of your call all around us, in nature, in relationships, in community, in sacred silence. We have followed a trail of breadcrumbs along the way, from stone tablets to still small voices, from prophets to angel messengers, from rainbows to rescues. We have seen Jesus, and we have learned again of you about forgiveness and about resurrection. May we love one another, because love is from you. Everyone who loves knows you and lives your life. For you, O God, are love. As Christ abides in you and we abide in Christ, so we abide in love. And ask that we may know more deeply, more fully, that love in which we abide. Amen.